Thank you to the panelists for this discussion. Let me bring it back to, I'm interested in how we address and help investors that are at risk of fraud and some sort of scams when it comes to investments in the crypto and securities market. Since January 2021, more than 46,000 Americans have reported losing $1 billion in crypto to scams. And the average loss was $2,660, I believe. And we also know it is difficult for people to recover their money. You guys, you've basically said that here. It is difficult after the money has been stolen and you are now a victim of fraud to recover that money, especially for investors with less than $100,000 in losses. And I think that's what the scammers are counting on, right? In 2009, FINRA provided startup grants to law schools to establish investor advocacy clinics in high-need areas. And I understand FINRA funded these clinics for 3 years, 2009 to 2012. I am interested in what can be done to help these investors, particularly that have losses less than 100,000, who really have difficulty getting access sometimes to attorneys. I'm curious, Ms. Walsh, can you tell me, was there the successes with these advocacy clinics, or what did FINRA learn from providing this type of support to investors who were defrauded or scammed?
I would be delighted to, Senator, and thank you for that question. One of the very earliest grants that the FINRA Foundation made in 2004 was to Northwestern to establish a securities arbitration clinic in the state of Illinois that previously did not have such a clinic. And then using the learnings, including the thoughtful guide that the law professors at Northwestern prepared on how to establish a securities clinic like that. We went out with a program in 2009 that continued until 2015. The securities arbitration clinics provide an important vehicle for individuals, particularly people who have low dollar securities claims, so under $100,000. In addition to representing those clients in arbitration or mediation, actually taking those cases to fruition, they provide a very important screening mechanism for people who come to the clinics who believe that something has happened, believe that they have been in some way harmed, and they provide counseling, because not all harm is in fact related to misconduct by a broker or by an investment advisor. And so they provide that very important counseling element. And they also provide outreach and education to the community. So we have provided a number of the securities law clinics with resources that they distribute, including an arbitration guide, so that people who do want to represent themselves can, but then also information on fighting fraud.
Yeah, no, I thank you, because I think it is an important service provided. I am actually hearing from our law school similarly that they would like to provide this essential service, and I think it's important. That's why Senators Menendez and Feinstein and I are introducing the Investor Justice Act, and the bill requires the Security and Exchange Commission to establish a similar grant program for interested law schools to operate investor assistance clinics for the very reasons that you just said. So thank you. Ms. Walsh, let me ask you this. Recently, and you've talked about some of these types of scams and schemes as well, but recently uncovered Ponzi scheme. We are aware of swindled investors of $59 million under the pretext of at least 5% in weekly returns. And you've both talked about the scams and the schemes that are out there. I guess my question to you is, how can Congress enhance the ability of regulators to pursue these criminals? What else do we need to be aware of that we should be doing to support regulators? And Ms. Walsh, Ms. Lubin, I'm going to open it up to both of you, whoever would like to start first.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. It's really important to make sure that the regulators have the adequate resources in order to make sure we have people in our offices who can pursue these kinds of cases. And we work together at the state level with our federal counterparts, with FINRA, depending on the nature of the case, in order to pursue these things. So the things that are really helpful are to help provide additional resources. Like, for example, there's a bill pending called the Empowering States to Protect Seniors Against Bad Actors Act that, along with your clinics bill, would provide additional resources. The seniors bill would place with the SEC the authority to give state securities and insurance regulators additional resources on a grant basis to help fund our offices to pursue matters involving seniors and vulnerable adults. So what's really important is that we have the jurisdiction, we have the freedom, and we have the authority to pursue these actions. So the kinds of actions that preempt anyone at any level or take state regulators out of it or limit our authority to pursue these kinds of actions, or frankly, to be the gatekeeper up front and know these transactions are registered or appropriately exempted before they're sold is really what we're concerned about. Because the more the regulators are taken out of the game and the fewer eyes that are watching over what's going on, the less effective we can be in protecting investors.
And if I may add, Senator, that in addition to my colleague, Ms. Lubin's remarks, in addition to the resources for regulators, it's important to focus on research, to understand the mechanisms of fraud, to understand the sort of personality characteristics that lead to scam susceptibility, and to foster networks within the federal government and across state governments to share this information on fraud and fraud susceptibility.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just so